It's that time. Everything and anything basketball, presented by The Outrage. With Kajan Castleman and host Spencer Byers, this is Polar Opposites.
Welcome, everyone. Polar Opposites back once again. We missed the Thursday episode, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to upload this technically Saturday night / Sunday morning. We're then going to post another one sometime midday Sunday, and then we'll be back again on Monday for regularly scheduled programming. And the reason why we're posting technically 3 times in 3 days is because, Cage, so much has happened. We had to record a Thursday episode, technically the Thursday episode on Saturday and Sunday, because just so much has happened since we last recorded last Monday. So we couldn't wait till Monday. We waited till Monday. It was going to be a 2.5-hour episode, and no one's going to listen to it.
Yeah, pretty
openly.
much.
And that makes sense. So we're going to chop this up. So we're going to start off this one, the Sunday morning episode, we're going to call this, and then we'll call the one we do tomorrow morning, Sunday morning. We'll call it the Sunday afternoon version. So the Sunday morning version, we got to start with Draymond Green. Draymond Green after, oh goodness, who did he punch? It was Jusuf Nurkic, correct, of the Phoenix Suns he punched in the head. So Draymond Green, who has already been suspended this year for punching or putting Rudy Gobert in a chokehold, got into an altercation with Jusuf Nurkic of the Phoenix Suns where he punched him, basically. He punched him and was ejected and has been suspended indefinitely. And I don't mean like, oh, it's like 20 or 30 games. I mean, he's just been suspended indefinitely until he meets requirements set by the NBA. So it is a indeterminate amount of time. Kind of like when John Morant was suspended last year for the flashing guns on social media. It's basically the same thing. He's suspended until the league says he isn't. So we'll see when he does make his return, but I think, Cage, what's been more interesting to me is all the players. Jusuf Nurkic has come out and said he hopes Draymond Green gets help. Rudy Gobert has come out and said he hopes to get help. And yes, those are the 2 guys that he got in altercations with this season. Kevin Durant's come out and said he hopes Draymond gets the help that he needs. So obviously. I've heard Steve Kerr come out and say he hopes Draymond can, figure out what's been going on with his recent outbursts, which I know isn't as recent, but you could definitely say Draymond's been more volatile recently. So, Cage, I guess we'll start with that. Did you, when you saw Draymond get in that altercation with Jusuf Nurkic, what did you think when you saw it?
I was like, Draymond being Draymond again. Honestly, I didn't think the NBA was going to do this, suspend him indefinitely. For one, I'm glad they did it, but there's just a ton to unpack here, first of all. I blame the Warriors organization. I blame Steve Kerr and front office leadership, and here's why. They let Draymond's behavior go unchecked for way too long, whether it's kicking people in the groin like Steven Adams, whether it's punching his teammate Jordan Poole. Now I know Jordan Poole's got some. Jordan Poole's season hasn't not been the greatest, but
he still can't punch a teammate, and not only punch a teammate, knock out a teammate, might I add.
Yeah, you can't do stuff like that. And then stomping on the chest of Domantas Sabonis last postseason. Getting into Donovan Mitchell. There was a scuffle with Donovan Mitchell in which he shoved him out of bounds, and then Mitchell, not liking what had happened, shoved him right back. And then the refs actually went back on replay to that and saw that Draymond had actually instigated all that and tossed him. And then there's the chokehold with Rudy Gobert. And what's so telling about that is his response right after he came back from suspension. He's like, he didn't regret doing that. That to me should have raised alarms in and of itself that he did not learn from what happened. To make matters even worse, then there's this. Then there's him just doing a spinning roundhouse punch right into Yusuf Nurkic, who did nothing. And I'm not liking what the players are saying about Draymond Green, saying he needs to get some help. Kind of like painting him as like this victim or like this person who needs to get help. Yeah, he does need to get help, but he did this to himself. He thought he could just get away unchecked. His behavior can get away. He thought he can get away with everything and leave his behavior unchecked. Nah, Draymond's not the victim here. Draymond is not the victim here. And I think I can't believe I'm saying this, but Kendrick Perkins was the one who brought this up. And good on the NBA for suspending him indefinitely. I was kind of hoping it'd be the season because, to be honest, they did Ja Morant way dirtier initially than they did Draymond Green. And Draymond Green's had a history of this. But I'm just not liking how Draymond's being painted as the victim from like the media and the players. I'm like, nah, he did this to himself. He got to get his ish together and quickly. Because if he continues this, pretty sooner than later, he might just get blackballed from the NBA.
Well, not even that, Cage. What I'd like to talk about with Draymond Green is I agree with you that I wish players would just say, I hope Draymond betters himself than, than the way they've been putting it, because I do agree with you that it does sort of paint him as a victim when he is doing these things. And he is, in almost every case, instigating the problem. It's not like the problem just finds him. It's Draymond doing something to instigate it or escalate it. In some cases, like the Gobert situation, a scuffle breaks out and he escalated instead of de-escalated. And my problem with Draymond Green personally is not that he plays with passion. Guys that play with passion are normally fan favorites because fans love to see guys that care as much as they do or damn close. And Draymond is one of those guys. Draymond does care a lot. And that is something that you can tell. And most fans, including myself, appreciate and like. The problem is Draymond Green takes it over the extreme where he does things out of emotion and they always get him in trouble. The headlock, the punch, the stomping on Sabonis's chest, I think 2 groin kicks he's done to Steven Adams, and I believe he did another after that one. He's been in the scope of escalating problems. And I agree with you that the Golden State Warriors should have done more to curve the behavior enough to kind of channel it, if you will, not let him do the thing that he's been doing or costing the team. Because let's also be honest here, Cage. We talk about availability with players, and we will get into some injuries going on right now around the NBA, specifically in Cleveland, especially. But availability is very important right now in today's NBA. Draymond getting suspended now twice this season, the second suspension being for God knows how long, is an availability problem. And the Golden State Warriors, who are right now on the outside looking in of the play-in, let alone the playoff, the play-in, they got to think about, is Draymond Green helping or hurting the Warriors more with him not only not playing particularly well, but being unavailable? He is flat out unavailable, and he cannot be unavailable especially he wants to be a part of that original big 3 with Curry, Clay, and himself. Or even if he wants to be a contributor to a championship team, he has to be available. And he just, for some reason, can't keep himself out of trouble. And it's getting worse. It's not getting better. It's getting exponentially worse than it has been in previous years. And one other thing, Cage, I want to mention that I don't know where this has gone. Draymond Green, when he was a younger player, and I don't mean like when he was freshman in the league, his age 25 year, he averaged 14 points a game, 9.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. I believe he made the All-Star game. He was 25. Okay. That was easily his best season in the NBA. 14 points, 9.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists per game. Since that moment, when he averaged 14 points a game, he's averaged over double digits twice, 10.2 and 11 points per game in the next 2 seasons. He has never averaged more than 9.5 rebounds. He's averaged once over 7.5 assists per game. So I could even argue, Cage, obviously we know what he does defensively. He's gotten worse as an offensive player since he was 25. Draymond Green's 33 now. He's not going to get any better, you wouldn't think. So he is what he is. And he, since 2018-19, so when he was 28, so about 6 seasons ago, he's averaged 7.4 points, 8 points, 7 points, 7.5, 8.5, and this year he's averaging 9.7 points per game. That's not enough from a starting power forward. And I know what he does defensively. I will not argue how good he is defensively. His assists and rebounds are also in the plus, but this year, Cage, they're down exponentially. He's averaging 5.5 rebounds per game, easily his lowest since his first 2 years in the NBA. His assists are 5.8, easily his 2 lowest since his first 3 seasons in the NBA. His blocks and steals are both down to their lowest since his rookie season. He just is not playing at the level that outweighs his problems on the floor. Not a little off the floor. He's having problems on the floor, staying on the floor. And when he's not playing at a level that I'll say I'll say the media, but even as an executive can say he's objectively outperforming even with his problem on the floor, staying available, he's not. He's underperforming and having disciplinary problems. So maybe Draymond needs to change the scenery just to get a fresh coat of paint, if you will, just to get a new vibe, a new expectation. But I feel like, Cage, it's getting closer and closer to his days are numbered in Golden State because they can't keep him around if he keeps doing stuff like this. And I think for him, I think it's important that Draymond gets a new environment and gets out of what's going on in Golden State because I think it's bad for him as well.
And it makes you wonder, this seemingly is just going to get worse before it gets better. Unless he has a kumbaya moment and realizes that he got to go about things differently. Because if he doesn't,
he changes his name to Draymond World Peace.
And not at the good kind for and the name World Peace, kind of ironic. But hopefully this does straighten him and that there's accountability there's accountability not only on his end, because it ain't just him. He's been enabled by the Warriors organization too. Let's not forget how complicit the Warriors organization is in Draymond being the way that he is right now. Because if that was put in check, let's just say after Game 4 of the 2016 NBA Finals, you would think they would have put him in check after that action got him suspended for Game 5 and arguably cost the Warriors a championship, or at least jump-started the Cavs' comeback from down 3-1 in the NBA Finals in 2016. You would have thought that the Warriors would have put him in check after that, but no, it's gone. His behavior, his actions have gone unchecked.
You could even say that the Kevin Durant incident.
Exactly.
The Kevin Durant incident, Cage.
He arguably was the biggest factor in Kevin Durant leaving.
The way the Warriors organization handled it. And Kevin Durant even said that. It wasn't what Draymond did, it's the way the organization handled what Draymond did. And again, that goes back to what you've been saying, Cage, about the way the Warriors and Bobby Webster, the general manager, president, whatever they call him now. I think he's left the organization now. But Steve Kerr is under the head coach. Bob Myers, pardon me, not Bobby Webster. Bobby Webster's, I think, the Raptors. But yeah, Myers. What they've done as an organization has enabled, not only have they permitted, they've enabled Draymond Green to get away with punching Jordan Poole, with driving away Kevin Durant, with all the incidents on the floor, the suspensions, the fines. And again, it's not that Draymond Green is a passionate guy. He lets the emotions get to a level, and then he does illogical, I'll say irrational things. Like, what possessed him to stomp on Domantas Sabonis? What possessed him to fling his leg out and kick Steven Adams in the groin? What possessed him to put Rudy Gobert in a headlock? What possessed him to punch Yusuf Nurkic in the head? Like, if they were things that you could explain, you could make an excuse for, this is a different conversation. But they're unobjectable things that he's done where it's like, but he did them. We have video evidence. We have replay evidence that he's done all of these things and more. And it's got to find a way to stop it. And I just don't know who could, what could, or if it is just what I think they need to trade him for the organization's sake and honestly for Draymond Green's sake. Because I really think Draymond Green needs a new ambience, a new expectation, a new organization. Because without changing the ingredients of the soup is going to taste the exact same. So unless the Warriors start changing some of the ingredients, Draymond Green start changing some of the ingredients, we're going to keep getting the same damn soup of Draymond Green getting suspended, doing irrational things on the floor, and costing his team and himself.
Same
Not sure
thing
if the
can't
soup
be happening.
reference worked out, Cage, but go ahead.
It did. In other words, the same thing cannot keep happening because it's getting out of hand.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But now, Cage, I do want to stay on Draymond Green a little bit, but I do want to move over to something that you did say about what Kevin Durant said, saying he needs help and how you didn't like that. What do you think of guys like Kevin Durant, who's played with him, who has been on his podcast, who does like Draymond Green, not just Yusuf Nurkic, who respects him, and pardon me, Rudy Gobert, who respects him, but a guy who's played with him, a guy who knows him, a guy who I'll say has his phone number, saying, hey, I hope he gets the help he needs. I'll not so much does it give it merit to a mental health issue, maybe of some description, but even more so, does it kind of show that other people are seeing Draymond Green's behavior changes, and maybe they're hoping that this lengthy, undetermined suspension will be able to curb some of that? Maybe not all of it, of course, but some of it, for sure.
Well, based off what former players have said, like former teammates of his have said, like Kevin Durant, maybe this isn't out of this. What has happened more so with Draymond has been more out of the norm than it has been before. Now, let me go without saying, they're not technically wrong, but that can't be the narrative on him. Like when I've seen these comments, I'm like, yo, is this are they trying to like help him curb his drug addiction or something? Like, yo, like something that he can't control. I'm like, yo, he did, like at some point, like he's got to hold himself accountable, and he hasn't done that. So technically, they're not wrong in saying that he does need help, because he does need help to get this under. He does need help to figure out what's going on and to curb all his actions and his behavior to a halt. They're not wrong in that, but that shouldn't be the leading narrative. I just hate how people are running with that as the narrative. It's like, nah, you gotta get your ish together in order to get back onto the basketball court.
Well, we'll see if Draymond Green can get that figured out, or if it continues to persist as a on the court / off the court issue. I will end with this, Cage, with Draymond. How long do you think this suspension will last? Do you think it's going to be, I'll say, because again, it's indeterminate. It's to be determined later type of deal. So we really don't know how many games Draymond Green could miss with this suspension, just like we didn't know when John Morant was suspended last year. We don't know. This could be, 5 days. This could be the rest of the year. It is very much up in the air. But what would you think, Cage, as just a game total? How many games do you think Draymond Green will miss before the NBA will allow him back? Obviously, I know it's about whatever their guidelines are for the league, whatever expectations they hold for him or whatever. But just for a bold number, Cage, what would you say that number you'd think will be how many games Draymond misses this year with this particular suspension?
What do I think based off of what the NBA is going to decide, or what do I think, or both?
We'll go with NBA first, and then you can say what you think.
Same amount of time, same amount of games they gave John Morant, 25. He's been a repeat offender. Now, what I think they should the rest of the season, the rest of the year, if you really want to make a statement, if you really want Draymond to learn from what he has, because this has been years of unchecked behavior and years of him being enabled, suspend him for the rest of the season. Maybe then that'll click that his actions have been are costly. To me, that needs to happen. To me, that more or less so needs to happen. But either from 25 games to the rest of the year.
Well, he's already missed 2. He was suspended after the Suns game. They've since played the Clippers and the Nets, a win and a loss. We'll talk about that. We'll say tomorrow, but in the next episode, we'll talk about the game roundup and what teams have looked like since we've last spoken.
Yep.
But I would think the NBA will probably. I would think the NBA is going to let him play by either the end of December or halfway through January. I think he'll miss about a month of games. Would be my guess. A max about a month of games. So I'll say, just quick count, it's got 7 games left of December, it looks like. And then I'd say probably 11, without counting, 11, 12 games in January. So I would say he misses probably 15, would be my guess. And I think that's excluding the 2 he's already missed. So 15 more, so 17 probably total. In my opinion, that's probably what he'll miss. If I was in charge and I could say, Draymond, I wouldn't suspend him for the whole year. I think that's a little excessive. I do agree with you, Kajan, that they do need to curve this behavior. I think it's been unchecked for well too long, as you've mentioned. I would say I'd suspend him till March. He doesn't play any of the rest of December. He's done for January. He's done for February. By the time we get to March and the Raptors, they play in Toronto on the 1st, he'd be allowed to play to Toronto. He'd be allowed to fly to Toronto and play on that road trip of Toronto and Boston. But that would be my suspension. Would be just till the start of March. And then he'd be able to play the last 2 months of the year and then into the playoffs. Would be my thought. But we'll see what Adam Silver and the NBA does with Draymond Green. And I'll say if, but when or if we see Draymond Green again this year will really be in the hands of the commissioner of the NBA. But now moving on to something that we're going to mention because of the controversy around it, not necessarily the game, because again, we'll talk about that in the next episode of what we've seen most recently in the NBA. But Giannis Antetokounmpo had himself a 64-point night in a 140-126 win over the Indiana Pacers for his Milwaukee Bucks, who are second right now in the Eastern Conference. That 64 was a franchise record and a career high for the Greek Freak. He had 64 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, and a block for maybe the best player on earth. I've heard the debates. I know where my eggs are, Cage. I think I know where your eggs are, but no one will argue Giannis is probably a top 5 player in the world any given night.
Mm.
But he wanted the game ball. Career night, franchise night. They were in Milwaukee. He wanted the game ball. The Indiana Pacers had taken the game ball because one of their rookies, older rookie, but still a rookie, number 24-year-old, number 44, Oscar Tshiebwe of Kentucky Wildcats, formerly of the West Virginia, before he transferred to Calipari and the Wildcats. Tshiebwe got his first point of his NBA career on, I want to say it was a free throw, because he literally scored 1 point, and it was a free throw. So the Pacers took the ball for the rookie. Obviously, Giannis was not happy with that. So, Cage, I guess my question would be, where do you sit on that debacle? You know, Giannis has the career night, the franchise night, but Oscar Tshiebwe does get his first NBA point. Do you think the rookie gets the ball, or do you think the vet gets the ball? Because I know what I think, but what do you think?
You know what? I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna let you talk about that because, like, on any given night, it should be the rookie. But if you drop a 64 piece like that, a franchise record, you gotta get the game ball because that's a pretty damn impressive accomplishment. Or kind of communicate along the way and figure this out. But go on.
I personally would say it goes to the rookie regardless, because Giannis has got game balls from his last career high, from, his first points in the NBA. Oscar Tshiebwe don't got that. And he'll never score his first NBA point again. You could say he could take his first NBA point at home, but that doesn't change the fact. I'm not arguing it wasn't in Milwaukee. I'm not arguing that Giannis didn't want that darn ball. But I would think, even if it's only a free throw, that they give the ball to Oscar Tshiebwe. But I'd also argue that, like in hockey, the moment Oscar scored that free throw, they should have stopped the game and took him the ball, and then had a new ball for however long the game was going to be, because they know they have more than one ball in the rotation in an NBA game. My goodness, they have more than one ball. So why not just use another ball and give Giannis that one? Or I'll say give Oscar that one. Basically, figure out a way to get 2 game balls so everyone gets what they want. Kind of like when a kid scores his first, second, and third goals and gets a hat trick, he gets pucks. Like, they use more than one puck. So why don't they just use more than one ball? I know you got more than one ball. I've done high school basketball games. I've watched college basketball games. I know you've got more than one ball in the rotation. Just use them both. So you're at $100 in basketballs. Well. The $1 billion franchise can't afford $2 $50 basketballs. Maybe I'm the oddball here, Cage. But I think it goes to the rookie, but I think they should have found a way to use both. You get 2 game balls involved and just have both teams take their game ball and go to the bus in peace without Giannis trying to hunt down the Indiana Pacers.
That was ridiculous.
You're going Mariah. But again, Cage, maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe that's just my thought. But anyway. Now moving on to, I'll say probably the last thing we're going to talk about. I haven't really decided yet. We'll see if we feel like we got time for the alternate last topic. But I think this may take us the rest of the show just because of, what this all means. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been, in the last couple of days, have been killed with injuries. The 14-2 team, 9th right now in the Eastern Conference, just had a big injury report with Evan Mobley and Darius Garland both being added to the injured reserve. Mobley, with arthroscopic knee surgery, is expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks, and Darius Garland fractured his jaw, is out for multiple weeks. So that's 2 starters on a decent Eastern Conference team that you would have thought would be better than 14-12. They've struggled this year, you definitely would say. Cage, I know I would say they've struggled so far this year, have the Cleveland Cavaliers. And now you're missing your starting point guard and your starting power forward. It's going to be tough now for the Cavs to keep that nice in the East, you'd think.
You would think so, but they just had a big win over the Atlanta Hawks earlier today. Good news. It's tough. It's tough because Evan Mobley having arthroscopic knee surgery, which is a bummer because he's one of the premier young talents in this league. And then Darius Garland, who we both love as well, suffered a fractured jaw after running into Kristaps Porzingis, and he played through that game. So it's going to be a war of attrition for this Cavs team. It's going to be a war of attrition for this Cavs team, but they do have a decent amount of depth to kind of offset it, even despite their underwhelming start. Even in spite of that, because they do have a guy who can start, who has started for previous teams in Karis LeVert. And Craig Porter has been a good piece for them off of the bench too. So I think they'll figure this out. I think Cleveland will figure this out, and they'll be just fine.
Also got Isaac Okoro, who used to start for them, Cage. So he'll also probably find his way into the lineup somehow, some way, with Donovan Mitchell taking over fully the point guard role, and obviously Karis LeVert fitting in at either the 2 or 3 spot, and Okoro maybe fitting in somewhere also around there. The power forward spot I do think is going to be a problem, especially as you mentioned there, replacing a really talented young guy in Evan Mobley, former top draft pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know who is going to take over that spot. Georges Niang might be the best option, you'd think. But I'd also honestly mention Emoni Bates. Emoni Bates might get a lot more minutes now because of a guy like Mobley being out.
Mm-hmm. He very well could.
And I will also mention Cage. With all that being said, I also want to mention I believe Karis LeVert's also been out recently, as my fantasy team will attest to. So again, the Cavs just being ravaged by injuries. And another big injury that came out today, Phoenix Suns have had like 4 games with their big 3 as Bradley Beal is out again and is likely out for multiple weeks with an ankle injury. So Bradley Beal, who had some problems in Washington, has just never been healthy really for the Phoenix Suns so far this year. And it makes you really wonder if Kevin Durant's second chance at a big 3 is also going to not really be fruitful for him, just like the last one wasn't.
And it's just unfortunate because Beal started off that game against the Knicks very, very well. But just can't seem to stay healthy at the end of the day. Landed on Dante DiVincenzo's foot after knocking down a 3, got fouled in the process as well. And man, it just it just sucks. It just sucks to see them suffer like that. And it just sucks to see injuries just ravage the league, especially a guy like Beal who's had an injury ravaged year and was starting to come back and whatnot, but injury is really getting into the way of his Phoenix Suns tenure, and it just sucks. It just sucks. Like, hopefully he gets back healthy for the rest of the year. But to be honest, I don't know how that's. To be honest, he's just had a really bad run of injuries, and it makes you wonder, like, for Kevin Durant, like, is it deja vu all over again, like what happened in Brooklyn? Hopefully, it isn't the case, but you just have to wonder at this point.
That you do. I want to mention Bradley Beal has played 6 games this season. Yeah, 6. That was 3 games in December 12th, 13th, and 15th against the Warriors, the Nets, and that whole 4 minutes against the Knicks, as you mentioned there with the injury. He played 3 games in November, the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th against Chicago, LA, the Lakers, and OKC. So it also adds to he hasn't played really well this season in those 6 games. He's averaging 14 points a night, his lowest of his career. His 3-point percentage is really good at basically 43%. His field goal percentage, though, is basically the same at 44%. And his assists and rebounds are down. That does also add from coming from a team that he was the number 1 option and really the only option to being, I'll say, the 3rd option on a team. That definitely will hit all of those categories. But never been getting in a rhythm, because we talk about rhythm and game shape and stuff like that. He's never hit that because he's never been healthy enough. You can't play 3 games and be in game shape. Like, it takes time to get yourself back into, I'll say NBA game shape, but just game shape, feeling comfortable again on the floor, especially when he's on a new team, in a new system, with new teammates for the first time in his career. He's only ever played for the Washington Wizards. He's now on a new team, in a new system, with a whole new group of guys, in a whole new role. And he's never had a chance to get comfortable because he's always been hurt. So we don't even know what the Suns could look like come playoff time because they've never been really healthy enough. And Beal continuing to get hurt will affect that even more, because if he is healthy to play in the playoffs, which you'd think as that baton is well down the track, you'd think he'd be able to, but still, will he be effective? Because will he be able to A, fit in the role he played, B, be able to mesh with the guys, and C, fit the system that they want to run? Like, there's a lot of variables for the Phoenix Suns that are also, as a team, with all the injuries to Booker and KD and now Beal again, they're only 14 and 12 right now, 10th in the Western Conference. They've really struggled this season as a team. And I think Beal is kind of the personification of that, with the injuries, with the not great play. It's just been really a tumultuous start for the Suns, and I don't know if it gets better or when it will get better for the Suns, because they put a lot of eggs in the Beal, Durant, and Booker basket. And right now, it hasn't exactly been the best bet so far.
It really hasn't. Just makes you wonder, like the Suns, who once had a bright future, like, what's gonna happen to them? Because he traded away Mikal Bridges just to get Kevin Durant in the first place. So you gotta figure this out. You gotta figure this out if you're Phoenix, because you're all in right now, and you gotta find timeline to get this together.
You really have nowhere else to go for Phoenix because, as you mentioned there, Cage, the injuries have really, really costed them. And we'll see if they can, I'll say, get healthy and stay healthy. 2 things I want to mention before we go. We will leave the officiating problems that players and teams have been dealing with this year for tomorrow when we do the NBA and NCAA roundup. So we'll start with the officiating woes, we'll say, with some recent ejections. Nikola Jokic, the best player on earth, in my opinion, being ejected against Chicago. He's been ejected now twice this year. Jason Tatum's been ejected Jaylen Brown's been ejected recently. A lot of guys have been getting tossed for not great reasons, in my opinion, but we'll get into that tomorrow. Two things, Cage, before we go. Michael Jordan headlines the inaugural Bulls Ring of Honor class. So the Bulls have now began a Ring of Honor, and obviously Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest player ever, will be enshrined with a plethora of other people from the 72 and 10 championship team of the Chicago Bulls in 1995-96. All 13 guys on the team, as well as Jerry Krause, the GM, Bill Jackson, the head coach, and Tex Winter, the assistant, who famously created the triangle offense that Phil Jackson used and popularized. And nice to see the Bulls, I'll say, honoring a great team and arguably the greatest team ever in the 72 and 10 1995-96 Bulls.
It's a nice gesture, most definitely, by this this Bulls team, who really have not had much going for them. Although they have shown a bit of life with Zach LaVine out. Shout out to Kobe White and Patrick Williams. But it's a great gesture. MJ has obviously meant a lot to the Windy City, and it's only right they honor him the right way.
I lied. I now have two things left to mention. This I just found, so now I do have to mention this because this is definitely interesting, Cage. Something that maybe changes my tune a little bit about the in-season tournament. The inaugural championship game of the in-season tournament, Cage, drew an average of 4.58 million viewers, peaked at 5.68 million viewers. So make sure I say those averages again, just in case I messed that up. They averaged 4.58 million viewers. They peaked at 5.6 million viewers on the championship in-season tournament game. That is the most people who have ever watched a non-Christmas NBA game since February of 2018. That is amazing for the NBA, and maybe shows that maybe I'm just a stick in the mud. Maybe the in-season tournament is a good thing. Because if it's garnering that many viewers, can't really argue with success, Cage.
Mm-hmm. Can't really argue with it at all.
I did have one other thing I wanted to mention. And now I just can't seem to find it, Cage. Going a little too far, apparently. I will quickly mention Draymond Green joined the 25,000 point club.
You mean James Harden?
As the Clippers continue to roll. James Harden, pardon me. I'm not sure what name I did say. I meant James Harden. I was looking at James Harden. James Harden hit the 25. How does that not surprise me? James Harden hits 25,000. Did I do it again?
No, you didn't this time.
Okay, good. James Harden hit 25,000 points as the Clippers continue to roll this season, which is definitely not bad to see for a team that has had obviously its struggles. And here it is, Cage. I knew when I saw it, I'd know what I wanted to mention. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar underwent hip surgery after breaking it at a concert. So our thoughts out to the legend that is the former most points ever and Hall of Famer and maybe even arguably greatest player ever, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Hopefully a speedy recovery. Obviously at his age, at 76 years young, it's not necessarily going to be an easy recovery, but hopefully Mr. Abdul-Jabbar can make a good recovery from his broken hip after falling at a concert in LA on Saturday.
You would have to hope so. You would have to hope so. And I just our thoughts go out to Cap. And he's one of the greatest players of all time. Really paved the way for a lot of these bigs. Really lived up to expectations, even after having sky high expectations coming out of UCLA. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery.
That'll be it here for us. So for the technically Thursday edition on a Saturday or /Sunday, Thank you for joining us for Kajan Theru Thanny Cast. I'm Spencer Byers. Thank you so much for tuning in for another Polar Opposites here on the Air Raid Jink.